21 Darkest Family Secrets, hidden by Hollywood's greatest stars. Glittering premieres, elegant mansions, and adoring fans, the stars of Hollywood's golden age seem to live charmed lives. But behind those dazzling smiles and carefully posed family portraits lurked secrets so shocking that the powerful studio system spent millions to keep them hidden. These weren't just minor indiscretions, they were life-altering family secrets that would have shattered the pristine images audiences cherished. During Hollywood's golden age, 1920s to 1960s, stars were crafted personas, not just actors. Studios like MGM and Paramount controlled every detail of their lives, often fabricating entire identities. Publicists and fixers buried scandals, and contracts gave studios immense power. Today, with memoirs and studio records emerging, we're finally uncovering the personal sacrifices and secrets these icons kept hidden to preserve their carefully manufactured images. Hidden identities and origins. 1. Merle Oberon, the star who erased her heritage. When audiences gazed at Merle Oberon's exotic beauty in films like Wuthering Heights, they were told she hailed from aristocratic British roots in Tasmania, Australia. The truth? This Oscar-nominated actress was born Estelle Merle O'Brien Thompson in Bombay, India in 1911, the daughter of a 12-year-old Anglo-Indian mother and her British employer. The reality of Oberon's birth was even more troubling. Her biological mother was actually the victim of sexual assault by her own stepfather, making Merle the product of this abuse. To shield the young girl from this horrific truth, Merle was raised believing her grandmother was her mother and her actual mother was her older sister. When Merle became a star, the studio created an entirely fictitious background, claiming she was from Tasmania, a location chosen specifically because its records had been destroyed in a fire, making verification impossible. She maintained this fiction throughout her life, even refusing to visit Australia until late in her career when she feared exposure. The deception required constant vigilance. As she aged, Oberon underwent painful skincare treatments and specialized lighting to conceal her mixed-race complexion. Even her husband and children weren't told the truth. This wasn't mere vanity. In an era of strict racial boundaries, the revelation of her true heritage would have ended her career instantly. 2. Rita Hayworth, transformation of a Latina star. The woman who became the definitive American love goddess began life as Margarita Carmen Cancino, daughter of Spanish dancer Eduardo Cancino. Studio heads saw potential in the talented dancer, but considered her too exotic for mainstream appeal. The solution? A complete identity transformation. Columbia Pictures executive Harry Cohn oversaw her reinvention. Her naturally dark hair was dyed auburn, her hairline painfully altered through electrolysis to appear less Latin, and her name changed to Rita Hayworth. The studio fabricated a more acceptable background, downplaying her Spanish heritage. But this public transformation masked a far darker family secret. Behind Rita's glamorous image lay a childhood of abuse. Her father, Eduardo, had forced her to perform as his dance partner from age 12, touring casinos and frontier towns. During these tours, Rita endured sexual abuse at the hands of her own father, a devastating secret she only revealed years later to her second husband, Orson Welles. While audiences were enchanted by the sensual confidence Hayworth displayed in films like Gilda, she privately struggled with crippling insecurity and a pattern of destructive relationships. "They go to bed with Gilda and wake up with me," she once lamented. Despite becoming one of Hollywood's most iconic stars, Hayworth struggled to escape the trauma of her hidden childhood and the erasure of her cultural identity. 3. Jack Nicholson, the sister who was really his mother. In 1974, Jack Nicholson learned a stunning truth. The woman he believed was his sister, June, was actually his mother. His mother, Ethel, was really his grandmother. To hide June's unwed pregnancy in 1937, the family fabricated their roles, so convincingly that Jack only discovered the truth at age 37 through a Time magazine reporter. Both women had died before he learned the truth. Though not traumatized, Nicholson reflected deeply on his past. His story highlights the intense stigma around unwed motherhood in mid-century America, where families often restructured reality to protect reputation, an experience shared by many during that time. 4. Bobby Darin, the grandmother he called mother. When teen idol Bobby Darin burst onto the music scene with hits like Splish Splash and Mac the Knife, he presented the image of a confident, ambitious young performer. Behind this brash exterior, however, was a young man whose entire identity was built on a family fiction similar to Nicholson's. Born Robert Walden Casado in 1936, Bobby grew up in the Bronx believing that Polly Casado was his mother and Nina was his older sister. The truth was that his sister, Nina, was actually his biological mother, who had become pregnant at 17 out of wedlock. To avoid scandal, Polly, who was actually his grandmother, claimed Bobby as her own child. Unlike Nicholson, who discovered the truth through a journalist, Darren learned his family secret from Nina herself in the late 1960s. By then, he was in his 30s, married to actress Sandra Dee, and had established himself as a versatile performer. The revelation devastated him, particularly because he had idolized Polly, the woman he knew as his mother. Friends reported that Darren was never quite the same after learning the truth. Already suffering from a weakened heart due to childhood rheumatic fever, the emotional shock contributed to a period of soul-searching and identity crisis. He abandoned his carefully cultivated image, grew a mustache, moved to Big Sur, and began focusing on folk music and political causes. The revelation came at a time when Darren was already facing health challenges. 5. Lon Chaney Sr., the silent film master shaped by silent parent. Known as the Man of a Thousand Faces, Lon Chaney became famous for his extraordinary ability to transform himself through makeup and physical contortion in silent film classics like The Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. What audiences didn't know was that Chaney's remarkable talent for nonverbal expression had its roots in his childhood. Both his parents were deaf. Born in 1883 to Frank and Emma Chaney, young Lon grew up in a household where sign language was the primary means of communication. His parents' deafness was not something Chaney discussed publicly. In the early 1900s, disabilities were often viewed with ignorance, pity, and Chaney fiercely protected his parents from potential mockery or exploitation. This family circumstance profoundly shaped Chaney's artistic development. From childhood, he became extraordinarily skilled at pantomime and facial expression, abilities that would later make him one of cinema's most versatile actors during the silent era. His unique understanding of how to communicate emotion without words gave him an unparalleled advantage. Chaney's first marriage revealed how deeply private he was about his family background. According to biographers, his first wife, Cleva Creighton, only discovered his parents were deaf when she met, as Chaney hadn't previously disclosed this fact. Their relationship reportedly suffered partly due to her insensitive reaction. 6. Gene Tierney. Tragedy from a fan's thoughtless act. Gene Tierney, famous for roles in Laura and Heaven Can Wait, concealed a tragic family secret. In 1943, while pregnant, Tierney contracted rubella after a fan, who broke quarantine to meet her, unknowingly infected her. As a result, her daughter Daria was born with severe disabilities, including deafness, partial blindness, and developmental delays. Fearing public backlash, Tierney and her husband, Oleg Cassini, privately placed Daria in an institution, a decision kept hidden from the public. Tierney's mental health deteriorated as she struggled with guilt, leading to hospitalizations and electroshock therapy. Years later, Tierney learned that the same fan who caused the infection had mentioned their meeting, though she said nothing. Tierney's grief and guilt remained throughout her life, and it wasn't until her 1979 autobiography that she revealed the painful story behind her seemingly glamorous public persona. This personal tragedy also inspired Agatha Christie's novel The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, though few connected it to Tierney's life. 7. Clara Bow, America's first It Girl and her horrific origins. Clara Bow, the 1920s, It Girl and first American sex symbol, rose from poverty to stardom, but her real life was marked by trauma. Born in Brooklyn in 1905, she endured abuse and instability. Her mother once tried to kill her, and Clara later revealed she was sexually assaulted by her father. Studios hid her past, crafting a false image of a carefree flapper. Behind the scenes, she battled anxiety, insomnia, and likely PTSD. Her mental health declined, leading to an early retirement at 28. Only decades later did biographers uncover the tragic truth behind her dazzling Hollywood persona. Double lives and fabricated personas. 8. Raymond Burr, the phantom family he invented. As the star of television's immensely popular Perry Mason series, Raymond Burr projected an image of integrity and moral fortitude. Off-screen, however, Burr lived a life of elaborate fiction, not because he was dishonest by nature, but because the truth about his personal life would have destroyed his career in the homophobic 1950s and 1960s. Burr, who was gay, invented a tragic backstory to explain his unmarried status. He claimed to have been married to a woman named Annette Sutherland, who supposedly died in a plane crash during World War II. He further embellished this fiction by saying they had a son who died of leukemia as a child. Neither this wife nor this son ever existed. They were complete fabrications created to deflect questions about his bachelor status. The extent of Burr's fictional biography is remarkable. He provided detailed accounts of his marriage in interviews, complete with dates and poignant anecdotes. He claimed to have married and lost another wife, Laura Andrina Morgan, to cancer, another fabrication. While Burr did marry once briefly in the 1940s to actress Isabella Ward, the relationship was short-lived and childless. Behind this elaborate smokescreen, Burr maintained a 35-year relationship with his male partner, Robert Benavides. The couple lived together on a vineyard they developed in California, their relationship known only to a small circle of trusted friends. When reporters pressed too hard about his personal life, Burr would shut down inquiries with a curt, "I don't discuss that." 9. Rock Hudson, The Marriage of Convenience. In the 1950s, Rock Hudson was Hollywood's leading man, handsome, charming, and marketed as the ideal bachelor. In reality, he was a gay man forced to hide his identity. When rumors threatened to expose him in 1955, his agent arranged a sham marriage to Secretary Phyllis Gates to preserve his image. The staged union ended in 1958, having served its purpose. Hudson resumed his secret life, maintaining a straight persona publicly while living authentically in private. His 1985 AIDS diagnosis exposed the truth and marked a shift in public awareness. His story reflects Hollywood's extreme measures to protect star personas. 10. Spencer Tracy, the Catholic, his wife, and Katharine Hepburn. Spencer Tracy, known for his moral strength in films like Boys Town, faced a hidden personal struggle. Married to Louise Treadwell in 1923, Tracy was devastated when their son John was born deaf. Believing it was divine punishment for his own sins, Tracy's guilt contributed to his battles with alcoholism and depression. Publicly, the couple was seen as devoted philanthropists, but by the late 1930s, their marriage had ended, though they never divorced. In 1941, Tracy began a 26-year relationship with Katharine Hepburn, which remained largely secret due to Tracy's Catholic beliefs and refusal to divorce Louise. Hepburn and Tracy maintained separate lives, and their relationship was hidden from the public. Hepburn accepted the situation, never pushing for marriage or acknowledgement. Tracy's image as a family man was carefully managed by studio publicity, while Hepburn was seen as just a friend. This arrangement lasted until Tracy's death in 1967. Only after his passing did Hepburn speak about their relationship, respecting Louise's privacy. Their story highlights how Hollywood's carefully constructed public personas often masked complex private realities. 11. Joan Crawford, Mommy Dearest Behind Closed Doors. Joan Crawford meticulously crafted her public image as a glamorous Hollywood star and devoted mother to her 4 adopted children. Fan magazines showcased her disciplined family life, presenting her as a model of maternal care. However, her eldest daughter, Christina, revealed a darker reality in her 1978 memoir, Mommy Dearest, published a year after Crawford's death. The book described Crawford as an abusive, alcoholic mother, subjecting Christina to physical beatings, psychological torment, and bizarre punishments, such as the infamous no wire hangers incident. While Crawford's younger daughters disputed Christina's claims, the memoir altered public perception of the star. Additionally, it was later revealed that Crawford's youngest children were allegedly adopted through Georgia Tann, a notorious baby broker involved in child trafficking. Though Crawford likely wasn't aware of Tann's criminal activities, this aspect further complicated her maternal legacy. Crawford's carefully crafted image of a loving, disciplined mother starkly contrasted with the abuse described in Christina's book, which later became a film. Mommy Dearest remains a stark reminder of how even the most curated Hollywood personas can be shattered when those behind the facade reveal the truth. 12. Bing Crosby, America's Crooner and the Children Who Feared Him. To the public, Bing Crosby was the perfect family man, warm, charming, and beloved for roles like the priest in Going My Way. But his son Gary's 1983 memoir revealed a darker truth. Crosby was allegedly a harsh, emotionally distant father who beat his sons and enforced strict rules, including weekly weigh-ins. 2 brothers confirmed parts of Gary's account, while a third, Lindsay, later died by suicide. Crosby's second family denied the claims, painting a conflicting picture. The contrast between his public image and private life highlighted Hollywood's power to fabricate idealized personas that masked painful family realities. 13. Charlie Chaplin, the comedy genius and his underage brides. Charlie Chaplin created the beloved Little Tramp character that made audiences worldwide laugh and cry. Off-screen, however, the comedy genius harbored disturbing secrets regarding his relationships with very young women, patterns that the studios worked diligently to downplay. In 1924, the 35-year-old Chaplin became involved with 16-year-old actress Leda Gray, who was cast in his film The Gold Rush. When Gray became pregnant, Chaplin faced potential criminal charges under California's statutory laws. To avoid prosecution, he hastily arranged a private marriage in Mexico. This wasn't merely a case of an older man pursuing a younger woman, as was unfortunately common in Hollywood. According to Gray's later divorce filings, Chaplin had initially pressured her to undergo an illegal abortion. When she refused, the marriage was arranged primarily to avoid legal consequences, not out of love or commitment. The marriage quickly deteriorated. Gray gave birth to 2 sons in quick succession, while Chaplin allegedly engaged in multiple affairs and subjected her to emotional abuse. When Gray filed for divorce in 1927, her 50-page complaint detailed Chaplin's controlling and demanding behavior. Throughout these scandals, studio publicity attempted to minimize the age differences and present Chaplin's marriages as romantic rather than potentially exploitative. The full extent of his behavior toward young women was downplayed in official biographies for decades. Chaplin's genius as a filmmaker is undeniable, but his personal life reveals troubling patterns that were systematically obscured from public view. In today's context, his relationships with teenage girls would be viewed not as Hollywood gossip, but as predatory behavior. The studio system's protection of Chaplin illustrates how completely different standards applied to powerful men in that era. 14. Gloria Grahame, the femme fatale who married her stepson. Gloria Grahame captivated audiences as the sultry femme fatale in film noir classics like The Big Heat, and won an Oscar for The Bad and the Beautiful. Her off-screen life contained a scandal so shocking that it could have been pulled from one of her movies, a secret the studios managed to keep hidden for years. In 1948, Grahame married director Nicholas Ray, her second husband. The marriage was already troubled when, in 1951, Ray allegedly came home early one day and found Grahame in bed with his 13-year-old son from a previous marriage, Tony. This discovery led to their immediate separation, though the true reason was kept strictly confidential. They divorced in 1952, with the public told only that they had irreconcilable differences. The story became even more scandalous. After Grahame's subsequent marriage to writer Cy Howard ended, she reconnected with Tony Ray, who was by then an adult. In 1960, Grahame and Tony married in a secret ceremony in Tijuana, Mexico. Gloria was 37, her former stepson was 23. For years, this extraordinary situation remained hidden from the public. The revelation only came during a bitter custody battle between Grahame and Howard over their daughter in 1962. When the press discovered that Grahame's 4th husband was her former stepson, it created a scandal that effectively ended her Hollywood career. The studios had successfully kept this inappropriate relationship out of the headlines throughout the 1950s, allowing Grahame to continue working. Once the truth emerged, however, the backlash was severe. Major studios blacklisted her, and she was forced to find work in television, low-budget films, and theater. Grahame's relationship with Tony Ray lasted until 1974, but her career never recovered from the scandal. Her story illustrates both the extraordinary lengths studios would go to protect valuable stars and the harsh consequences when such protection failed. The taboo relationship that had been successfully hidden for so long ultimately became the defining aspect of her legacy, overshadowing her considerable talents as an actress. Hidden children and family scandals. 15. Clark Gable and Loretta Young, Hollywood's best-kept secret child. In 1935, Clark Gable and Loretta Young, both at the height of their careers, began an affair while filming The Call of the Wild, which resulted in an unplanned pregnancy. Fearing scandal, Young devised a plan to cover it up. She secretly gave birth to a daughter, placed her in an orphanage, and later adopted the child, naming her Judy. For years, Young maintained this fiction, never revealing that Gable was the biological father. Gable never acknowledged Judy, though they met once when she was 15. Young denied the truth when Judy questioned her resemblance to Gable. The secret remained intact for decades, with Hollywood insiders speculating but the press never confirming it. In 1994, Judy revealed in her autobiography that she confronted Young in 1966, and Young finally admitted the truth. The deception was motivated by Young's Catholic beliefs and her desire to protect her career. The emotional toll on all involved was significant, Young lived in fear of exposure, Gable never acknowledged his daughter, and Judy grew up confused about her origins. This cover-up highlights the lengths stars went to protect their images and the power of Hollywood's studio system to shape public perception. 16. Ingrid Bergman, exiled for forbidden love. In the 1940s, Ingrid Bergman embodied wholesomeness and virtue to American audiences, partly due to her role as a nun in The Bells of St. Mary's and the noble Ilsa in Casablanca. Her image as the antithesis of the typical Hollywood symbol made her enormously popular and set the stage for one of the most dramatic falls from grace in Hollywood history. In 1949, while still married to her first husband, Bergman traveled to Italy to work with neo-realist director Roberto Rossellini on the film Stromboli. They fell passionately in love, and Bergman became pregnant with Rossellini's child while still married. When news of the affair and pregnancy broke, the public reaction was vicious and unprecedented. Bergman was denounced from the floor of the United States Senate, where Colorado Senator Edwin C. Johnson called her a powerful influence for evil and Hollywood's apostle of degradation. Churches called for boycotts of her films. Fan mail turned to hate mail overnight. The backlash was so severe that Bergman was effectively exiled from Hollywood for 7 years. She remained in Europe, married Rossellini after obtaining a divorce, and had 3 children with him, including a daughter, Isabella Rossellini, who later became a famous actress herself. The punishment far exceeded the crime by modern standards, but it reflected the moral expectations placed on female stars in that era, especially those like Bergman who had been marketed as symbols of virtue. What makes Bergman's case particularly notable is that male stars routinely engaged in similar behavior without facing such consequences. The double standard was glaring, but the studio system and the press operated with different rules for men and women. Bergman's greatest sin, in the eyes of the public, was not matching the pure image that had been created for her. Bergman's eventual return to Hollywood in 1956 with Anastasia, for which she won her second Oscar, represented a form of public forgiveness. When she appeared at the Academy Awards in 1959, she received an ovation that suggested the industry, at least, had moved past the scandal. Nevertheless, the years of exile and public shaming remained a painful chapter that demonstrated how quickly a carefully built image could crumble when reality intruded. 17. Judy Garland, the father she couldn't mention. Judy Garland, beloved for her role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, had a childhood marked by a dark family secret. Born Frances Ethel Gum in 1922, Judy's family left their hometown in Minnesota under mysterious circumstances when she was 4. The reason was her father, Frank Gum, who was reportedly gay or bisexual in an era when such orientations were socially unacceptable. Frank had inappropriate encounters with young men, and when rumors surfaced, the family moved to California to escape scandal. Judy was told they were relocating for better showbiz opportunities, never learning the true reason. Frank's marriage to Ethel was strained, filled with arguments and separations, leaving Judy confused. While Frank favored Judy, their bond was complicated by his secret life and the pressure to maintain appearances. Garland's MGM image of an all-American girl hid the reality of her family's struggles. Frank died when Judy was 13, taking many secrets with him. The full story of his double life remained hidden until after Judy's death. Judy's early experience with family secrets shaped her own life as she continued to present a cheerful exterior while privately battling pain and insecurity. 18. Jerry Lewis, the daughter. He never acknowledged. For years, Jerry Lewis was the face of the Muscular Dystrophy Association, raising millions for Jerry's kids. However, he reportedly had a daughter, Susan Minoret, from a brief affair in the 1950s that he never acknowledged. Susan, who resembled Lewis, grew up hearing rumors but received no support or recognition. Despite attempts to contact him, Lewis refused to meet or take a paternity test. Susan struggled in poverty, suffering from Crohn's disease, while Lewis enjoyed fame and wealth. Additionally, Lewis's will excluded his 6 sons from his first marriage, reflecting a troubling contrast between his public and private life. 19. Patty Duke, the son with 3 possible fathers. Academy Award-winning actress Patty Duke found herself in a predicament in 1970 that would remain one of Hollywood's more convoluted paternity secrets for decades. At just 23, Duke became pregnant during a period of extreme personal turmoil when she was involved with 3 different men in rapid succession. Duke had been romantically linked with teen heartthrob Daisy Arnaz Jr., son of Lucille Ball and Daisy Arnaz, but Lucille Ball strongly disapproved of the relationship due to the age difference. Duke then briefly became involved with actor John Astin, who was married but separated. In the midst of this complicated situation, Duke impulsively married Michael Tell, a virtual stranger who was subletting her apartment in what she later described as a manic episode related to her then undiagnosed bipolar disorder. The marriage to Tell lasted just 13 days before being annulled, but the timing coincided with Duke's pregnancy. When her son Sean was born in 1971, Duke publicly identified John Astin as the father. Astin later divorced his wife, married Duke, and raised Sean as his son. For years, Sean Astin believed John was his biological father. The situation grew even more complex when, in Sean's teens, Duke told him she believed Desi Arnaz Jr. was actually his biological father, a startling revelation that understandably confused the young man about his identity. For a time, Sean developed a relationship with Arnaz, believing him to be his father. 20. Barbara Stanwyck, the adopted son who became a stranger. Barbara Stanwyck projected strength and resilience in her film roles, qualities she needed in her personal life as well, particularly regarding her relationship with her only child, a story that remained largely private during her lifetime. In 1932, Stanwyck and her first husband, actor Frank Fay, adopted a 10-month-old boy they named Dion. The adoption came at a time when Stanwyck and Fay were trying to save their troubled marriage. When the couple divorced in 1935 after Fay's alleged alcoholism and abuse, Stanwyck gained custody of 3-year-old Dion and raised him as a single mother while continuing her demanding career. Despite her efforts to be a good mother, the relationship between Stanwyck and Dion became increasingly strained as he grew older. By his teenage years, they were growing apart. Dion reportedly struggled with behavioral issues, while Stanwyck's demanding career and naturally reserved personality made emotional connection difficult. By adulthood, mother and son were essentially estranged. In a rare 1960s interview comment about her son, Stanwyck tersely said, "I have no son," effectively closing the topic to further discussion. Various accounts suggest that Dion may have had problems with substance abuse and the law, though details remain scarce. Some biographers have suggested that his rebelliousness may have been partly a reaction to growing up in the shadow of his famous mother, while others have pointed to the complications that can arise in adoptive relationships during that era, when adoption was often shrouded in secrecy and shame. The final confirmation of their estrangement came after Stanwyck's death in 1990, when her will revealed she had left Dion only $5,000 from her considerable estate, essentially the minimum amount needed to prevent him from contesting the will. The bulk of her fortune went to friends, her longtime publicist, and various charities. Stanwyck's private heartbreak over her failed relationship with her son contrasted sharply with her public image as a strong, capable woman. Throughout her career, she maintained strict boundaries between her professional and personal lives, rarely discussing her private struggles. The true story of her relationship with Dion remains one of Hollywood's quieter but no less poignant family secrets. 21. Gary Cooper and Patricia Neal, A Secret Pregnancy and Its Aftermath. In the late 1940s, Gary Cooper was the embodiment of American masculinity, tall, stoic, and married to socialite Veronica Rocky Cooper. Patricia Neal was a rising star, 25 years his junior. When they met filming The Fountainhead in 1949, they began a passionate affair that was kept out of the papers through studio intervention and press discretion. The affair continued for several years, with Cooper torn between his marriage and his feelings for Neal. In 1950, the situation grew more complicated when Neal became pregnant with Cooper's child. A pregnancy out of wedlock in 1950s. Hollywood could have ended Neal's career, while revealing Cooper's infidelity would have shattered his wholesome image. Under pressure from Cooper and facing the reality of her situation, Neal made the difficult decision to have an abortion, illegal and dangerous at that time. Cooper arranged the procedure, which Neal later described as the saddest thing that ever happened to me and her greatest regret. The emotional aftermath was devastating. Neal suffered from depression following the abortion, while Cooper, a Catholic, was tormented by guilt. Cooper's wife Rocky discovered the affair and confronted Neal, allegedly threatening to ruin her career if the relationship continued. Eventually, Cooper ended the relationship and recommitted to his marriage, even undergoing a religious recommitment to Catholicism. Neal, heartbroken, left Hollywood temporarily for Broadway, trying to escape the painful memories. This entire episode remained largely unknown to the public for decades. At the time, fan magazines mentioned vague rumors about Cooper and Neal, but the pregnancy and abortion were never reported. Only in the 1980s, long after Cooper's death, did Neal begin speaking openly about their relationship and its painful conclusion in interviews and her autobiography. The Cooper-Neal affair illustrates how completely the studio system could suppress potentially explosive scandals when motivated to protect valuable stars. It also reveals the personal cost, particularly to women, of maintaining the illusion of moral propriety in an era when career success depended on public image. Neal later stated that she believed complications from the illegal abortion may have contributed to her inability to carry pregnancies to term in her subsequent marriage. These 21 stories represent just a fraction of the secrets hidden behind Hollywood's golden facade. For every scandal that eventually came to light, countless others likely remained buried in studio archives or went to the grave with those who kept them. The toll of maintaining these deceptions was enormous. Many of these beloved stars lived with constant anxiety about exposure. Some turned to alcohol or drugs to cope with the strain of their double lives. Others suffered from depression and isolation, unable to share their true selves with the world. The psychological impact was perhaps most devastating for those who had to deny fundamental aspects of their identities, their heritage, or even their own children. Imagine living like Merle Oberon, unable to acknowledge your own mother, or like Rock Hudson, forced to marry a woman to protect your career, or like Loretta Young, pretending your biological daughter was adopted. These weren't just celebrity secrets, they were profound human dilemmas. When we watch films from Hollywood's golden age now, we're seeing not just the performances these actors gave on screen, but the ones they maintained off-screen as well, often at tremendous personal cost. As these secrets have emerged over the decades, they forced us to reevaluate our understanding of these iconic figures. Rather than diminishing their artistry, these revelations have added depth to our appreciation of their achievements. Consider what it meant for someone like Katharine Hepburn to deliver brilliant performances year after year while keeping her relationship with Spencer Tracy hidden from the public. Or for Rita Hayworth to project sensuality and confidence on screen while privately carrying the trauma of childhood abuse. Or for Judy Garland to sing Over the Rainbow with such longing while her own family history was built on secrets and displacement. Many of these stars developed incredible resilience in the face of these challenges. They channeled their complex emotions into their performances, perhaps finding in their art the authentic expression they couldn't allow themselves in life. The pain and duality they experienced may have contributed to the depth and nuance of their work. Today's celebrity culture, with its social media transparency and diminished privacy, operates under very different rules. Modern stars face their own challenges, but the particular burden of maintaining elaborate fictional lives has largely disappeared. We can look back at Hollywood's golden age with a more complete understanding of the human beings behind the carefully constructed images. The stars of Hollywood's golden age shine no less brightly for having been revealed as complex, flawed human beings. If anything, knowing the struggles behind the glamour makes their artistic achievements even more remarkable. They created timeless performances while carrying secrets that would have crushed many of us. These stories remind us that behind every carefully curated public image, whether in Hollywood or our own social media lives, there are complicated human truths. The pressure to present perfect facades didn't end with the studio system, it just took new forms. As we've uncovered these 21 dark family secrets, I hope you've gained a deeper appreciation for these legendary performers. Their films continue to captivate us, not despite their personal struggles, but perhaps partly because of how those experiences informed their art. If you've enjoyed this journey through Hollywood's hidden history, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations of classic cinema's untold stories. Leave a comment sharing which of these revelations surprised you the most, or which Golden Age star you'd like to learn more about in future videos. Until next time, this is Legacy News, celebrating the full, complicated humanity of the stars who built Hollywood's golden dreams. Thank you for watching.